What's up everybody? Welcome to Bakumono. In this episode, we're going to look at phase 2 of the cafe build.
Zaidi, Zaidi. Zaidi,
In phase 1, we learned how to build a cafe racer. In phase 2, we're going to look at how to fix it. What that means is that we're going to look at modernizing some of the performance components to increase the performance of the bike, improving some of the safety aspects of the motorcycle, some of the reliability, and generally making the bike better. So let's take a look at what it was like to ride it and what some of the issues were that we found with it. Alright, so now that I've ridden the cafe racer for about a season, let me give you the breakdown of what the bike is like. So we're running on pretty old tires, which are pretty thin, and suspension that's quite old. So not exactly the most confidence-inspiring setup there is out there. The suspension tends to wobble a little when you go into corners, so it makes things a little bit scary. In terms of the riding position, the modified riding position is quite leaned over, but not too bad. You can easily do rides around town for 40 minutes to an hour, no problem, without any aches or pains. And even more than that, I'd consider a different motorcycle for, or a different setup. The bike is quite heavy, so even though I've taken off probably close to 80 pounds of weight off of it, there was a fairing on it, there was saddlebags. The bike is still probably anywhere between 200 and 220 kilograms, which puts it in about the same weight as a liter sports bike. In terms of power delivery, the V45 is quite an interesting machine. It does from 0 to 5,000 RPM, it behaves kind of like a modern 300 or 400 cc bike. So good pull, but nothing to write home about. Now above 5,000 RPM is when the remaining of the 82 horsepower from the factory kick in. Now how much of that is actually still there, we don't know, but it's quite a kick. The bike really starts to pull hard above 5,000 RPM and comes to life. If you're not holding on, very easy to slip off of it. To give you an idea of how powerful it is, under hard acceleration, it will spin the tires in third gear. So, pretty decent beast. Now, in terms of the feel of the motorcycle, what can I say? It is a 38-year-old machine, and it does make you feel, or it does leave you with the feeling that it will leave you stranded wherever you go. Even though it's been perfectly reliable and it's started every time and has worked perfectly fine all season, I still have that overwhelming feeling. The brakes on the bike, quite spongy. Not confidence-inspiring at all. The rear brake seems like it does nothing, and then just locks off the rear tire. The front brake requires quite the handful of squeeze to actually get it to do something, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, not exactly a super inspiring ride. So yeah, that's pretty much what it's like to ride a 1982 Honda V45 Cafe Racer. Now let's take a look at what are some of the things that need to be fixed. Right, so first issue on the list is, and the biggest issue, of course, with the bike is the tires. The rear tire, we have a, what is this, a Challenger, Bridgestone Challenger, 130/90/17 from 2009, which you can kind of see is already cracking up. I'm pretty sure it lets out air, and even though it has quite a bit of thread, it does not inspire confidence whatsoever. As for the front, we have Cruise K673F, it's a 120/90/18 from 2006. Again, quite dated, even though it has plenty of thread. Not exactly a modern tire, and should definitely be changed. Next on the list is suspension. So front forks, they are quite interesting because they combine hydraulics with air pressure. So as you can see, if I take the caps off, there is a air nozzle here, and on the tank it says how much PSI to put in. So for the longest time I rode the bike thinking that the forks are set up properly without air in them. And what that made it do is essentially it would dip and expand under acceleration or braking very easily. So the other day I was at the gas station pumping up the back tire, and I figured, oh, you know what, I'll just pump up or check the pressure on those and pump them up. And I checked the pressure, it was at 0 PSI. I tried to put air in it, they instantly inflated to 40 PSI, which I had to then let out. So right now they're, I think, between 10 and 20, not a very exact measure. Bike is a little better, but that pressure in there is not configured properly, so I'll definitely need to get a device to put more precise pressure into the forks. Now the fork seals seem okay, but I did notice some oil on the fork tubes themselves a few weeks back, so I will probably be changing these as well. Now on the back side we have a shock that, well, is pretty tough. So I will be replacing it completely with a aftermarket shock that is hopefully a little bit longer, because the problem I'm having now is that with my weight on it, it leaves very little travel before the tire actually rubs onto the hoop back here. So that needs to be updated. I forgot to mention that on the front forks, I'm also going to replace the springs in them with some progressive springs. That should give me a little better suspension, and I will replace the hydraulic fluid in there to hopefully better match my weight and present for some better handling. So since I installed clip-on bars onto the bike, and I've changed the levers to OEM looking like ones, I have experienced an interesting issue. So when the bike is upright, you can see the handlebars are inclined, so the master cylinders on the clutch and the front brake are actually inclined. Now that means that the fluid in them isn't sitting in there at a leveled state, so a lot of the time the main valve that actuates the fluid into the line is potentially sucking in air instead of fluid, which is no good. Now, to make the problem even worse, my clutch slave cylinder, which is behind here, is still slowly leaking some of the clutch fluid. So, to resolve that, I'm going to be changing out the levers for ones that have master cylinders that are adjustable so they can mount them in a leveled way, and I will be replacing the clutch line going down to the slave cylinder with a steel braided one, as well as taking a look at disassembling the slave cylinder again and polishing off the piston in there so that there is no abrasion causing lack of sealing. On the brake side of things, since we're going to be changing the lever and master cylinder, I am also going to modernize the brake lines. So I will change out the brake line from going from here down to this splitter and then splitting out to both sides, to doing a more modern approach where I go from the master cylinder down to the left caliper, and from here looping over to the other caliper. Again, this will be done with steel braided lines, so that all that spongy feeling that I have in my front brake hopefully goes away. On the topic of modernizing the last piece of the puzzle for the front brake, I will also need to readjust the rear brake, because right now, like I mentioned before, it seems to be nothing, and then lock the brake. So this is very easily done by just twisting this, but it will require a little bit of testing to make sure I get it right. The next piece of the puzzle is the exhaust. So recently I discovered that after about an hour-long ride, the exhaust headers on cylinder 1 were glowing red, and none of the other ones were, which would imply that this cylinder is running pretty hot, which means that I probably have, again, a fueling issue. This means that there's more tinkering to be done, and on the topic of the exhaust, it would be nice to get a little bit more free-flowing exhaust pipe with nicer sounding mufflers on there. So we will look at potentially replacing the exhaust system completely, with potentially the exception of the rear headers. Now, with replacing the exhaust, that means that we'll probably need to take a look at the carburetors again and the intakes, and potentially having to do some work with that. Maybe some 3D printing, never know. Alright, so that's pretty much it in terms of my plans for this next phase of the build. I mean, COVID is ramping up again, winter is coming, so we'll see. Maybe there will be more time to do even more things. Either way, in the meantime, you guys should subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications when new videos become available. Check me out at Instagram at balpromoto2018, and make sure to check out balpromoto.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.